Hello and welcome to Audible Anomaly, the podcast where we foster deep and meaningful conversation to help get you through your darkest days. I'm your host, Josh, and in today's episode, we are talking about some of the recent challenges that we've had to face and how we are either dealing with them or how we overcame them. But before we get started, let's check in with my lovely friends. Let's throw it over to Davey. How was your week?
My week has been great, actually. Well, the end of my week has been great. I obviously work is still kind of a challenge overall. The job we do is hard and demands a lot from us. But I think towards the end of the week, the spirits kind of picked up in the office, which was really nice. And it felt more comfortable to be around. So I couldn't be too mad about it. I golfed or hit golf balls at a driving range for the first time. That was fun. And we went bowling last night. That was also fun. And then today's my roommate's birthday, and we're gonna hang out and chill. And it's just been eventful. And it's kind of like the first time in a long time, especially because of COVID, right? That I've actually gone out and done things. You know, it feels weird in this like post-vaccine world to like I can feel comfortable going out and doing things and not being like a little bit guilty about it, you know?
Yeah, I get that. At least for me, I don't know if comfortable was the right word. It still felt a little weird, but I wasn't having to worry about it as much. But yeah, how about you? How about you, Kev? How was your week?
My week was fine. A little bit weird. I found out that at this new job I have, my boss is quitting. So we'll have worked together for a total of 1 month. But it's all good.
Nice.
Wasn't he out of town as well when he got there?
No, that was one of my other coworkers.
Oh, the other one? Okay. I thought that was the same boss. I'm like, wow. That timing was...
No.
Okay. Well.
Hey, perfect time to swoop in there and just become boss.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Look at me. I am the boss now.
Big power moves.
I'm Kevin. I've been here 1 month. I'm boss now.
Hey, just
but other than that, just, same old.
Right on. The coup starts somewhere. So, you have about a month. Less than a month now. So,
yep.
Figure it out. Yeah. My week was kind of much the same as Davey's. As I mentioned, we tend to blur together. But yeah, we went bowling yesterday, which was very weird and very satisfying. And also, I suck. It's been so long. But yeah, it was just fun going out and actually doing something like you mentioned. It's just weird in this post-vaccine world where we're able to kind of go out. And I know, at least in California, looked like Newsom signed the mandate that pretty much officially ending the mask mandate for people who are vaccinated. So that's exciting and scary at the same time. But it's a sign that we're in a good place, and I know our vaccination rates are pretty darn high. I think they're about 70% of all adults, roughly. So that's not too bad. So yeah, I mean it's weird having especially, I guess, kind of tying into the theme, obviously one of the major challenges that the whole world kind of faced was, dealing with this pandemic, and now we're starting to kind of come to the end of it, and it's just kind of mind blowing and awesome to kind of see that, how we all, for the most part, rallied together and were able to get through this thing. I know we kind of talked about it a little bit recently, but kind of just a refresher, how was it, especially I know there was a lot of difficult conversations, at least for me, with family members and yo, sorry, we ain't doing Thanksgiving, we ain't doing Christmas, that's not happening. How was it for you guys? Just kind of refresher.
I mean, family for me was weird, because my family was very anti-mask, right? Very anti COVID. like even at one point, like I was being told it doesn't exist, it's not real, right? It was kind of a bad situation. I didn't really deal with it. I just kind of kept doing what I had to do, and I said, "Oh, okay," and I moved on. Uh, I know a lot of people want to fight back against it, but it's also kind of realizing you're not like there's no winning here. It's just arguing for argument's sake, because they're gonna keep believing what they believe until somehow they convince themselves it's not the case. It's just kind of a sad moment of like watching someone, their head is so deep in the sand in regards to some of the stuff, and you just kind of be like, well, that's the way you're going to be, and I just have to accept it until you can pull your own head out of the sand a little bit and look at the world as it is. So I think they've gotten a little bit better about it, but yeah, I just kept doing what I had to do to keep safe.
For sure. And as I hit the mic there, sorry. Especially as we kind of come out of this, and I know especially a lot of places are starting to fully open or have already been open for a minute. I know your family, being in Texas, that they lifted restrictions a while ago. It's just going to be very interesting to hopefully just get through this and just like have this be something that we talk about in 10 years and just laugh about. I mean, sure, the coronavirus is going to stay within existence in some capacity or another, but as time goes on, obviously we get better at treating it, better at preventing it, and we'll kind of just go from there, and it won't be as, hopefully, as daunting as it was. Because I know, at least the way I saw it, was the main selling point, or not selling point, but like the main thing about this virus was just how unpredictable it was, and how it could go by so undetected in so many people, and there was just this kind of this craze of like, we don't really know what the heck's happening. Like anyone can have it, and they don't even know it. So it was really just like a holding pattern of like, we don't know what's happening. Let's just like play this ultra safe. And sure, obviously, there's always gonna be a good collective, and I mean, you can kind of understand where they're like, well, is it an overreaction? Because at the same time, like, we don't really know. So it's like, sure, as things started progressing and the science started evolving, we started to understand it more. But it was one of those where it's like, especially in early stages, we're just like, no one really knows what the F is happening.
Yeah.
So, but how about you, Kev? How's kind of dealing like with those conversations and such?
Honestly, it was pretty easy for me because I'm already so well separated from my family. It's like we see each other once, maybe twice a year. Okay, we skipped that this time, but we all realized like it's just what we gotta do. They weren't playing around with it. I wasn't playing around with it. It was all good.
Yeah, that's always good. That's always good.
How about your own family?
Yeah, for me, it was one of those where like we were really touch and go. I know, like my mom, like my wife's side, one of like her stepdad, my father-in-law, is a physician's assistant, so he's like frontline worker, and then my mother-in-law has like almost every autoimmune disease under the sun. So like, of all people who had to play it safe, it's kind of them that really were the ones that should have played it safe, which is why like we had made plans to go like Thanksgiving with them, and then we were planning on going with my family, and then my mom ended up saying that like, oh, it's going to be a little bit bigger thing, and like all my cousins are going to be there like normal, and then I had saw that like a lot of them were going with like already went with their family, because we always tend to do Thanksgiving and Christmas on like the off day, so either like Christmas Day, because usually people do the eve, or for Thanksgiving later on in the week. So I think we did a Sunday that day, and I was just like so conflicted of like, up until literally Sunday when we were gonna have the Thanksgiving dinner, and I was just like, I was so conflicted of like, do I just go and just get out of the way and then just leave? And I was just like, you know what, I have to do like what I thought was the right choice and just say, look, I'll skip this one. Probably gonna skip Christmas if it continues in this trend, but we'll be together again soon. It's gonna be okay. I'd rather just get through this, be safe, than rather risk anything, and especially us, because we were still going in the office, and then we had a couple outbreaks and stuff at work. I was just like, I don't feel comfortable at this point, So it sucked, but at the same time, they were either understanding or not. I honestly we haven't really had like too in-depth of conversation about it. Like, it never really came up in conversation, at least. So I assume they're like kind of understood. And then also, like, the other person that I know in the family that was taking it a bit more seriously, even more so than I was my uncle. So I feel like he kind of broke the tide, because like he definitely just did not come to anything. Like, he was just like, no, like, don't worry, like, I'm not even gonna show up. So like I feel like he was the one that kind of like set the precedent, and then me just coming back in and just bolstering it was like not so bad. That's what I like to think, but we'll see. we'll see once we have those conversations and we're able to get together, which hopefully it'll be pretty soon here. But yeah, that was kind of my experience, at least, dealing with that. All right, let's move on here a little bit. Now let's talk about some recent challenge or challenges that you guys have faced or are working to overcome. Not sure who wants to take the helm here, but
Well, I really only have like one challenge to bring. I mean, I faced a lot of challenges. Like, work is a big challenge, right? My mental state is a big challenge, but I think the one challenge I want to talk to is more of an external thing, and it's selling my family's house. Is probably the biggest thing. A little bit of backstory for it. My grandfather bought it from my mom and my dad. Just kind of as like a, hey, get you off your feet. Here you go. Here's a house. Pay me back later for it. Well, my dad passed before my grandfather, right? So originally in my grandfather's will, the house was going to go to my mom and dad. Or I think my dad specifically, right? Where the money that was supposed to go to him was basically going to cover up the house and stuff like that, right? Well, because he passed, the house was then in the trust's name. And the idea was part of the money was going to go to the three kids. Basically up to $30,000 each. Or $33,000 each. Me and my brother and my sister were going to get. And the rest of it was going to go to my parents or towards the funds owed to the trust. Well, we lived in that house for quite a long time until my adulthood. So around 22, my parents decided, my mom and my stepdad decided, we're selling this house and we're getting the heck out of here. Well, that meant that I needed to get the heck out of there because they didn't want me to move with them. They were like, you need to go get your own feet. You need to go stand on your own. And I was like, all right, fine. You need to do it by the time we sell the house. And I was like, fine. And like literally the next month I found an apartment. I moved in. I was gone. Well, they didn't sell the house. They put it on the market. I think it was on the market for like a year and a half. They didn't sell it. From that point, I think it was about 2.5 years later, I convinced them, I told them, look, you hate living here. You can't sell the house. You've got to fix it up. Do this. Move out. Go find your own place. Let me rent it out. And the extra money for the rent will go towards you and supplementing whatever rent you're paying so that you're not getting hit too hard financially. They loved the idea. They moved out. I moved in. And the idea was, we'll live here for a year. We'll fix up the house in the meantime. And then we'll sell it after. Well, 2 years went by. And essentially it got to this point of my brother was moving to Kansas. They then wanted to follow suit and move to Kansas. And, pardon me, that meant selling the house. Like, they had to sell this house. And they couldn't afford the rent of the place they were living at because of financial difficulties. And so they were like, well, here's the deal. We're moving back in. We're moving back into the house. And you can either come with us to Kansas, but what they wanted, or you're going to need to find your own place. So in the beginning of 2020, at the start of COVID, my stepdad had moved to Kansas already. He then got swine flu at the literal beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. Had to move back. And the challenge really lied in, we had to take their 3-bedroom house that they were renting, and all of their crap and move it into this really tiny mobile home. And it was pretty much just on my shoulders and my brother's shoulders to do the actual moving. Because when we got there to move, things were not packed and things were not ready. And so it just took me and my brother had to work 12-hour days for 2 days, moving this entire house into the small mobile home. And the living room had stacks of boxes, just like my height and higher. I'm about 5'9", right? 5'10". So we're talking about 6-foot stack of boxes. And my mom was too stressed about things, and she was working. My sister wasn't a lot of help at the time. So my poor roommate Adam was just having difficulties because he had to deal with all this. I had to kick one of my other roommates out because I had to make space. And now there was 5 people living in this house, 5 adults living in this house. And it was just in the midst of the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic. And my job closes down, right? I'm not open. We're closed for 2 months. And I'm just spending all of this time just packing boxes up, throwing things away, condensing. I have to just, I can't live in this clutter. I just couldn't do it. My anxiety was just so stricken, right? And so I'm just spending this whole time just trying to get things in some kind of order because I couldn't stand it. And all I was hearing was complaining and arguments and yelling and all this negativity. And I just I was like, I'm stuck in this house. I can't go anywhere. And my mom and stepdad are yelling at each other. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm a grown ass man who's got a full-time job and has been living on their own for 5+ years. And now I have to deal with this. And I can't take it. I was free. I didn't have to deal with this anymore. And now I had to deal with it 24/7 because they were either working from home or didn't have a job at the time. And so it was just that constantly. And it finally got to this position at around May. I had to make the decision of whether I was going to leave or stay in California. And after all of this, I was like, I can't move with them. It's just not going to happen. I can't take it. And Adam finally, he was like, I'm leaving. And, I want you to come with me. So we found a place in May, we moved, but that didn't stop it. I still had to keep working at this house, right? Because eventually my parents moved too. And so at this point, I'm the only person left in California with the house. So now I'm stuck dealing with anything that has to do in person and cleaning up the remainder of the house because not everything was taken. So I'm literally having to take these extra trips, these extra days, these extra time to go and clean up more of this mess, throw more things away, go put more stuff in storage. It's kind of on my own, right? Obviously, I had some financial stakes in it because I was going to get some money, but it just felt like this huge burden. And it really just relied on me. And the realtor was really bad. They were so flaky. They were not helpful. I ended up having a phone call with them where I was like, you seriously need to listen to me and you need to figure this out because I am not going to deal with your crap. I am here to get the job done. I am not here to mess around. And I had to yell at her. And mind you, I probably had one other conversation with her, but I was like, It's like I can't deal with it. Like I'm just the guy who is trying to facilitate everything and make sure things work, right? I'm not really the seller. I'm the son of the seller who has been designated to take care of everything. So we finally got everything done. I think it was around February that everything was finally done. Money was transferred. Like it was a roller coaster of there's just and my grandmother died in like in like November, December, like in the midst of all of it. And it's just like everything compounded around that house. And everything seemed to go against me with that house. And the moment we sold it, we definitely sold it for less than we wanted to, but the moment we sold it, it just like the world was off my shoulders for the first time in a long, long time. I just felt so. I mean, I took that money, I paid off debts that I had. Like, I paid off all of my credit cards. I like took a huge chunk of my car debt down. Like, just like stuff like that. And it was the most relieving feeling I've had in my life, where I finally felt like I am not 2 steps behind everyone else, because I've always felt that way. This is the first time I was like, I am on par and in right with my life. I do miss the house though. It was a nice little house.
It was a nice little
nice
house.
little house.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there a couple times. Do you want to share the storage debacle?
Oh my god, that was a.
Because I remember you telling me about that, and I was just like, "What?"
So this is a week before the house is supposed to close, and we were supposed to have everything gone. And my parents had paid our neighbor to move stuff out of the little storage unit was in there. I moved it to an actual storage unit, like there was a little shed that we can keep stuff. And I was told that it was done, and that I was really just supposed to go in there and pick up the little leftovers that were there, right? And just make sure everything is good. Or even like I told myself that I needed to go do that. Turns out nothing was moved. Not a single thing was moved. And I'm livid because I've been told all of this stuff got taken care of. So I call my mom and I said, "Why is all this stuff still here? You told me it was gone." And she said, "Yeah, well, the guy we paid to do it said it was done." I said, "Well, you need to call him and he needs to get his ass down here right now. And he needs to take care of it. Because if we're paying him, then he needs to get the job done. Because I don't have a truck to move all this. This is a lot of stuff. And I've got a little sedan. Like, it's just not going to take care of it." And he gets there. And I'm seething at this point. And I'm telling the guy, like, "Please, I need you to, like, my mom is paying you. This is everything I've been told." And he's lying through his teeth. He's like, "Well, no, I was waiting on your mom. And she said this was needed to be taken care of first and blah, 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 blah." And I kept telling him, "I just need you to get the job done." And in my head, I'm like, "Please stop lying to me. I know you're lying to me because you're clearly trying to BS your way through this. I just need you to do this." And we get to the storage unit, and through all my anger, I realize I don't have the key to get inside. So I can't unlock the storage unit. So I call him, I say, "You have to turn around. We have to drop off this stuff, and I'm just going to have to take care of it myself. Because I don't have time. You apparently don't have enough time to do this. I have to get it done by next week, or else we're screwed." And I call my mom, and "You do not pay this man. Like, do not pay him, because it's just not worth it." And for like the rest of the week after work, I had to go back to the house, take all the stuff I could, take it to the storage unit, and then finally go home. So I had to like do this in like trips. And it was just the worst ending to the whole saga was having to deal with that the last week of being told something got done and then realizing, oh shit, this needs to be taken care of now, and none of it got done. Yeah.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. Ugh. I felt when you told me that, I was so Like, I was mad for you. I was like, geez Louise. I'm like, of course it's not done. I was like, oh man. And just seeing you stress through that entire thing was wild. Wild. Yeah. All right, Kev, you want to go next?
Sure. I mean, this makes my worries, my challenges look real easy, man. All I've been like, my biggest challenge recently has been for the past year, most of the past year. I was looking for a job in my field. I graduated, didn't have an internship lined up, no big deal. Just find some entry level position, settle for something a little bit lower than like what I really wanted, but nothing. Hiring freezes left and right. Things started, then randomly stopped. Get back to me like 3 months later. Just like, I don't know. But that finally all resolved. Just kept pushing through it. Got my job. Got the wage I wanted. Got the position I wanted. So it's all good. I just had to keep going. But dealing with like not making as much money as I really wanted to make my living situation comfortable, a little bit stressful. So wasn't ideal, but we got through it.
And the whole time you were still working, you're just obviously not in your field, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. Like if I had no job, that would have been so much more stressful. Would have been a very different situation.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that whole job searching. We're lining that up for next week. Just because, especially during the pandemic, it was kind of wild. So that'll be a fun one to kind of go through. But yeah, I mean, it took you almost a year.
About a year, touch over
a year of like active searching, right?
Yeah.
Jeez,
damn,
that is crazy.
It's so tough. I mean, I'm sure that pandemic was probably a big catalyst of like it taking a long time.
Yeah. I mean, some of it's like setting my expectations more realistically, but there wasn't much of that. So there just wasn't a lot of opportunity for like new positions.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty for sure. Yeah, that's wild. I'll press you more on it next week. Of like the processes and all that stuff, because I can't imagine it's like oh hey, do an interview and you're hired. It's obviously more intensive than that, I'm sure.
Usually, yeah.
Usually, yeah. You would hope. But yeah, right on. Yeah, my
own challenges.
Yeah, the challenge that I really want to like highlight, and I think I've said this before on podcast, where like I understand this notion of like when people talk about like their kids, like their babies and stuff, and like how they're so proud of it, and that's like the only thing they talk about for like ever. And I kind of got a glimpse of that dealing with the wedding. So I'm going to talk about trying to plan a wedding during the pandemic. So I gotta trace it back a little bit, even before the pandemic. Just from trying to figure out when and where we're gonna even do our wedding. So my birthday's in November, the wife's in September. I thought, hey, let's split the difference. Let's go in October. We can celebrate everything kind of as one giant like thing, right? And we'll have our anniversary and then our birthdays, and we'll like, I don't know, do like something pretty big instead of like smaller things. Sure, we'll have like family, like dinner with family and stuff, but like, you know, do one massive celebration, maybe go travel somewhere or something, you know? So that was like the concept of it. Well, October, as it turns out, is the most popular month for getting married. We didn't know this. And fortunately enough, we were we started looking at stuff about a year and a half out of our projected date. We had wanted 10/10/2020 because that was kind of cool. Well, that was taken. There was either October 3rd, which ended up being my anniversary and when we got married, or Halloween. So we're like, Halloween's not happening. That's not for us. We'll leave that for someone who it is for. So October 3rd was a maybe for the venue. The venue said there was someone who had a hold on it, but they hadn't heard anything from them. So they're like, we'll get back to you like when we had said we're up for it, like the day after. Fortunately, things worked out, and like as soon as they called us, we went straight in and we were like, okay, we're signing. Like, what do we need? Do we need what? Like, we were just like all in, right? We're like, perfect. Let's book this date so we can finally, get things going. So the nice thing was that the venue was like, it was all inclusive. It pretty much had the food, the ceremony space, pretty much everything but decorations, photographer, DJ, covered, honestly, actually, because they even did the cake and everything. They have a partnership with with one of the local cake or bakeries. So they literally had pretty much everything. So we're like, oh my God, like, yes, this is a bit expensive, but weddings are expensive, especially in California. The average wedding, I think, is about $33,000, which is wild, at least in California. And we're doing it at less than half that, which is awesome. So, I mean, yeah, great. So we're like, okay, cool. This was May. This was like, I think we finalized everything about June or July of 2019. So we're moving, we're grooving, we're starting to get things going. Then the pandemic hits, and it's March 2020, and we're like, okay, well, it's a couple months away now, about 8 months or so from our wedding date. We don't know how long this thing's going to last. So I was just kind of holding my breath. And I think about 3 weeks into it, California's shut down entirely. I'm working from home. And it's like, okay, I really don't know what's happening at this point. No one really does. So I just reached out to the venue and said, hey, like, what are you guys currently doing with the weddings that, you have lined up that obviously have had to get postponed? So I said, oh, like, what we're doing is we're pretty much pushing it out up to a year. And then, because they're assuming that by then things would get a little bit better. So we're like, okay, cool. There was a lot of changes that were going to end up happening. Originally, we had buffet style kind of service, which for 150 people, which was how many we were going to have, they said you can get through everyone through in about 12 minutes, which is kind of redonkulous. And we're like, damn, that's impressive. So they're like, yeah, that's not going to happen anymore. We're going to have to do plated dinner. Everything's going to have to be dropped. And there's just like a whole bunch of like restrictions that were happening. So, or that were changes that were made. So we're like, okay, cool. Like, you guys are actually like, I mean, obviously you're doing your due diligence, but like, cool. You're like, it seems like you guys are actually getting, trying to adapt to this thing and at least from what it sounded like, doing a pretty amazing job. So the first wave kind of comes and goes, and we're in June, and we get this notification saying, okay, you can come, you and the wife can come in and bring up to 4 people with you, and we'll do a tasting. You're going to do your tasting. There's going to be more people there, and we're just all, going to kind of hopefully get through this and start having the event. So in June, we ended up having I think late June, we ended up having tasting. It took the best man and the maid of honor there to partake and help us kind of finalize our menu. So, I mean, the food is, it's great. So I'm excited for that. So we did everything, and all of a sudden we start seeing, oh, hey, starting to get a little bit worse again now. Like the summer wave started to hit. So we're kind of just holding our breath. Like, as far as we're concerned, we could still technically proceed with it. Like, we hadn't heard anything to the contrary. So we were kind of like in this state of like, we sent out our invites, we sent out all communication to our vendors, which fortunately was very few. And we're like, hey, like right now we're on for October, but it's a real holding pattern. I mean, that could change at any moment. We're not sure. So I think it was about 2 months out. So what's that? August? Yeah, August or so. Things are still not getting much better. So we're like, okay. So at this point, pretty much me and the wife here sitting there like, look, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, it's not trending in the right direction, and I don't know when it's going to get better. We need to figure out if we're going to go through with 150 people or if we should push it back at this point. So we had some conversations, and I'd come up with the kind of great idea of like, brother-in-law, the house they bought, that's a funny story. The wife and her brother ended up buying the house together, not knowing that the brother was dating someone and eventually ended up proposing and marrying. So at this point, they're like, well, but the wife's like, I'm not gonna like stay here because I want this to be your guys' nest egg. So like they ended up buying her out of the of the house. But yeah, that house is also connected to their parents' house, which it happened to be, I think, a family who had designed it that way. The parents lived in the house where my in-laws now do, and then I think the son or the daughter or whoever, one of their kids was renting that house, which is why they had a gate to it. And that's actually one of the first bonding activities I had with my father-in-law, was putting up a gate in between the two properties. But yeah, so it's like, hey, like, have a kind of big backyard. Outdoors seems to be like the safe option here. What if we just bring in our wedding parties, which are close friends who like we, and then just have like immediate family and just have like this outdoor thing. So we're like, okay, let's talk to brother-in-law. Let's see if he's up for it. So sure enough, they're like, yeah, I mean, it seems okay as long as, you're cleaning everything up and everything. We're like, of course. So yeah, like we ended up postponing the major wedding till October of this year. So the plan currently is to do it October 3rd of 2021, which is a Sunday, on our 1-year anniversary. But now we went from this all-inclusive affair to, hey, guess what? You got to figure literally everything out. And you have a month and a half to do it. So the fortunate part, and I never thought I'd say this, but being laid off was actually beneficial in this case. Only because unemployment hadn't kicked in quite yet, but I had severance pay, which covered me up until, I did the math, it covered me up until just about the wedding. So I was still good there. But it gave me literally all the time in the world to go ahead and like try and plan this thing. And I know the wifey, like, she was working like 2 jobs, and I'm just like, look, I have literally nothing to do other than job search right now. Like, I'm going to like plan as much as I can, because that just seems like the best thing to do. So I ended up doing I did most of the planning. Like, I learned way too much about weddings. So if anyone ever needs wedding advice, I gotcha. In the future, that goes for you too as well, if you do end up getting married. But yeah, like, it's so freaking crazy because there's so many small things that you don't never really think about that are just like, And especially in the COVID thing, we had this like whole conversation about how are we going to handle silverware and plates and stuff. And what we'd come up with was like my mom wanted to do like, oh, like I wanted to do like this whole nice arrangement and like put like a bunch of like little details on like the things. I'm like, yes, but are they COVID safe? So then we had this whole conversation of like, what can we do? And we ended up, the brilliant brainchild that we came up with was putting everything into a Ziploc bag. So you can still present it really nicely, but it's protected and it's a single use type thing. And then we technically still had buffet style, which and not necessarily COVID safe, but what we did was all the high risk people, we had them go first through everything. And then that way the low risk after the fact, they'd already be fed and everything. And so like there was so much like mental gymnastics that had to go on of like proceedings and how everything's going to work. And it was just crazy. And the whole time, the other thing that we ended up having to do was the honeymoon, because we had booked a European river cruise, which we're hoping we can go on this year. So it ended up being the brainchild again of me, but I was thinking, okay, like I'd love to like just go to Seattle and like, because me and the wife, we went to Seattle, we loved it there. So many cool like museums and things to do. It's really fun. But at the same time, we're like, well, like what happens if they end up going in a shutdown and we're stuck there for 2 weeks? So I'm like, okay, let's do a road trip of some sort. And then I'm like, okay, 2 weeks road trip. What about Route 66? I know it's unorthodox, but it's about 2 weeks, I think. So then we ended up stumbling across this video. That was like a 2-hour thing of like literally from beginning to end, kind of the journey of Route 66. It was a father and son duo. That was really, really well composed, honestly. That I was like, okay, yo, I am in. Like, this looks so much fun. This looks like so much fun. So I ended up watching that at least twice through. He broke it up into individual like segments, if you will, or like snippets of like days and stuff. So I ended up watching that the second time through. And then I found another person who they just do like a lot of like, especially like California, like SoCal history and such. They did a LA to Chicago to LA over like a month and a half. So I ended up watching that, and that was at least 8 hours of video. And yeah, I did so much research, and I did so many like just small little things that it's like I also know way too much about Route 66 now, and I'm sure I could learn even more. but yeah, I was just like, I literally have nothing to do. Like, I'm applying to jobs and no one's calling me, and we'll talk about that next week. But I'm just like, this is my full-time job now. I'm just travel planning and wedding planning at this point. Like, and it was crazy. It was just kind of crazy going through all that, and like, I don't know. It was wild. It was so wild of like trying to figure out everything. And at that point, I think that was kind of the only thing really keeping me sane, to be honest, just because it's like, A, it has to get done anyway, but B, like, I'm stuck here at home and I don't have anything to do, and I don't have like a contingency plan or anything. I'm just like, so yeah, I mean, it ended up working out, I think, beautifully. And I definitely want to do Route 66 again at some point, because it's so fun. It's so fun, and that was even during pandemic time. So yeah, I'd love to see it during non-pandemic time, especially during the summer when it's like busy season. I'm sure it gets fun. There's a lot of those towns I want to go back to.
Well, I know you need to do way more of Chicago than you did.
So, fun fact about that: we landed in Chicago about probably 1:30. We darted over because I wanted to go see pro wrestling tees because I'm a kind of a wrestling fan. Uncle more so, and I was going to get him some stuff along with one of our coworkers. There's also a few of our coworkers were big wrestling fans, so I went down there to try and get some stuff. They're closed on Saturdays. Go figure. So like whatever, I took a picture outside, went to Target, and then as we're driving from Chicago O'Hare we were close to downtown where we're staying, like you started seeing a bunch of people like out and about and like just going crazy because that was the moment, or that was the day that Biden was announced as the projected winner. So it was wild. So we end up going there. We end up getting to our hotel about probably 5-ish. I mean, we drove around. We went to go see Walt Disney's birth home, and I did a couple other things before then. So we ended up getting to the hotel about 5, and literally as soon as you get close to downtown, all you hear is honking. Honking, honking, honking. I mean, literally honking from whenever it got announced to about 10:30 at night. Nonstop.
Damn.
Non-stop. There was people that were driving down toward the Loop, which is close to like where Cloudgate is, or the Bean, and that Millennium Park, which is like the main park there, and I think Jefferson Park and stuff, which are a little bit further south of where we were. But like literally, like there was people hanging out of like cars and just like bumper to bumper traffic. Like I took a picture of it from. What is the building? The Hancock building, I think it was, which is not quite Sears Tower. Don't ever call it Willis Tower. And locals will crucify you. Fun fact. It's Sears Tower. Just so you know. So yeah, like I took pictures of like you could just see nonstop, just red lights like on the main street, just going straight into that part of town. It's just like holy crap. So at that point, we're just like, yeah, there's no way we're doing anything really here. So we ended up doing the tilt experience. We're at the Hancock building where you put your hands up against the glass and then they tilt you forward over the edge of the building. Just crazy fun and like almost surreal. If you're afraid of heights, obviously you're going to freak the hell out. But at the same time, it's kind of weird because it's almost like you suspend belief because it's just like, I'm over this building. And I could just fall to my death, but at the same time, it just looks so fake. Like, I don't know, it was weird. And then the other thing we did was we did Illuminati's versus Giordano's for the deep dish, best deep dish. Split consensus on that. But
much to my dismay.
We were trying to prove a scientific. We did a double blind experiment, and it ended up split. So. But yeah, so I mean, we really couldn't do anything in Chicago, but we really want to. I just want to go back there, Oklahoma City, Albuquerque. So I want to go to the Nuclear Science Museum. Yeah, there's just a lot of things I want to go do over, but also Albuquerque because we got there as the day they shut down again in New Mexico. So literally didn't get to do much. Story for another time, maybe.
Still, very big challenge. I know planning weddings alone or drive people crazy, but then to have to switch everything at the last minute because of some stupid global pandemic or whatever, that is. I remember how stressed you were. I remember like at work, and you're just like, yeah, I can't do anything after work. I've got a wedding to plan.
Pretty much. It's just like so many small details and everything. I mean, sure, did things go not great and some of it? But of course. I knew it was
honestly,
going to.
It was a beautiful ceremony. It was wonderful.
I'm not going to lie. It turned out a lot better than I was expecting.
It was a wonderful night.
It was so intimate and just, it was so worth it. It was so worth it.
Yeah.
It was nice to share that with you guys, and Honestly, I'm so looking forward to this next one where I can just sit back and just like not do a darn thing. Oh, oh,
Just enjoy it. Yeah.
yeah,
It's going to be fun.
yeah. I'm excited. It's gonna get rowdy, I think.
I'll make sure of it.
Yeah, Grandma's gonna dance. I don't know about that actually. But yeah, it's been crazy, but it'll be fun. It'll be fun. Alrighty. Do you want to get into our audience responses?
Yeah, let's hear what they have to say.
Let's.
Yeah, let's do that. Kind of talking about the going through the challenges. Our first response here is from Kelly. She gives us a question, and the question is, what motivated you to overcome your challenge? So I'll answer this one because it's kind of easy for me. Getting married. It's kind of the motivation there. And then I'd say for the honeymoon, having an adventure. Because me and the wifey were adventurous people. We like doing just these random things and traveling and stuff. And it was really, really cool to just kind of do that. Although I did feel like we were still rushed even on 2 weeks. Because there's just so much to see. You know?
So love conquers all, then, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
How about you, Kev? What motivated you?
What motivated me was really, like, I've always felt that I was a bit behind other people my age, similar to what you were saying earlier, just because I took a long time in college. So getting finally into my career and then making more money too. That really pushed me to keep going. How about yourself?
Yeah, I still feel that feeling today, Kevin. So I know how that goes, feeling kind of behind from everybody else. But you know, we each take our own time.
Yeah.
What motivated me was just closing the chapter out of my life. Was just like being done with it, because obviously I had dealt with it since I was 22. I'm 27 now, so it's been 5 years. You know, it was a long time coming, and it kept feeling like I was getting something promised to me, and then it never succeeding, and then another thing promised to me, and then it never going through, until I ended up just having to be like, all right, fine, I'll do it myself. Just like that, what is that Thanos quote? Is that what he says? I'll do it myself. I don't know. But yeah, I was just ready for that. I mean, money was kind of a factor, but it really wasn't the biggest. It really was just like, I love this house, and this is the house that I grew up in, but I am so tired of seeing everyone stressing over it. I'm so tired of it being the motivation for everything. I want it gone, and I want to move on with my life.
What would you call that chapter? Has to be a question, according to you.
Yeah, it's got to be a question. What is a home?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Good one. If I had to name mine, it'd be marriage is what brings us here together.
I love it.
And 26? 27? For you, Kevin?
For you, Kevin? Your chapter's your age?
Yes. 27.
27.
No, it'll be 28 because it's age plus 1.
That's right. So there you
go. Chapter 0.
No prologues here.
Any epilogues?
We'll see. I don't think I'm going to write that one.
It's just going to be it'll be the eulogy.
I was going to say, not sure if epilogue or eulogy. Epilogue or epitaph.
It's just a picture of a tombstone. Kevin.
Change to a picture book in the later years. Makes it easier.
It's Kevin in a wheelchair. Just
Can't read the fine print anyways. What does it matter?
Fair, true.
Oh man, that's good.
Good question.
All right, great question there from Kelly. We'll move on. The next two seem to be coming off a little bit of a theme. Let's see if you can spot it here. At the photographer, mine feels a bit lame, but the toughest challenge I've had recently is that I had an emissions leak on my truck. It took me about 2 months of tinkering to fix it. All it was a purge valve on the engine block. I had to replace 3 other parts before I figured it out. Oof. Oof.
I feel that one in my core. Just like having to try and fix something, and it's just like, I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this. And you drive crazy, and then you're finally like, oh, it was just this. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I'm glad it's working now at least. And
We all feel you, that one. That one's not a lame challenge at all. That one's a doozy. Ugh.
Although, might I recommend, for car troubles, if you can, get someone to read your DTCs. There are thousands of them. They make stuff generally pretty easy to figure out exactly what's wrong. And if that doesn't make sense to you, talk to your mechanic.
And there's your pro tip from Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And similarly, at Aspiring Fate, I have been having nonstop issues with my truck ever since I bought it, which is recently. I was supposed to drive up to Idaho to see family a few weeks ago, but my truck barely made it 20 miles before I had to pull over and have it towed back home.
Oh.
That sucks.
Yeah.
You know, at least it was only 20 miles.
Mm.
I once had a trip where I drove up to Utah, and on the way back, coming down the 15, we hit about Cedar City, and the car broke down. The engine pretty much was shot.
Oof.
And we were stranded in the midst of the 15 in the middle of the desert, waited at least 2 to 3 hours for a tow truck, and then was stuck in Cedar City with no car.
Jeez.
And we were stuck there
brutal.
for about a day before we could actually get a rental car to us and get home, because we couldn't get it fixed. And mind you, we broke down on a Sunday in Utah. Not the best time to have an emergency that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up leaving the car there and having someone fix it, and then eventually later coming back and picking it up. But you don't want to break down in the middle of nowhere.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Last I checked on Aspiring Fate, he said he's worried that it might be one of the pistons, I think. So he was taking it to the mechanic some point in the middle of the week, and he's like, if it is that, which I think is a common issue in that truck or in that engine, it might be an engine replacement.
Mm.
So hoping it's not, but that'll do ya for sure.
I mean, if it's a recent acquisition, it may be under warranty. I don't know.
Bought it used.
Oh, never mind then.
Yeah. So, well, wishing you all the best, and it's never fun, but we're I guess at the point where we're gonna wrap up this episode. So before I throw it over to you guys for your plugs, I'm gonna plug the podcast a little bit. If you enjoy us, feel free to follow us on the socials at Audible Anomaly. And if you want to shoot us some questions, maybe some suggestions, you can reach us at audibleanomaly@gmail.com. And we'll be sure to read those as they come in. Other than that,
I would also say, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, maybe, if you like what you're seeing. If you're listening to this on a podcast service, I know Apple Services has a review section. give us a review. Shoot us a 5 stars if you really like what you're seeing. If you want to shoot us, so if you want to shoot a 1 star, then get the heck out of here. Or if any other podcast service has a review system, just leave a comment, leave a rating. We love to see how we're doing. So
if you leave us a 1, maybe let us know how we can improve.
And then give me your name and your address. I will no.
No.
I'm kidding. It was a joke.
No.
I'll give you a hug. I'll hug you.
Well, is that still acceptable? I don't think that's acceptable yet.
I don't know. I'll wear a mask.
Oh, okay. That's fine then.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, guys. What are you guys working on? Let's hear them plugs. Davey?
Well, as always, you can find me on twitch.tv/DPRLtron, where I stream 4 days a week. We have fun. I'm very energetic and I'm very performative. And if you like the silly side of me, you'll really like this stream. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So check me out there.
All right. Kind of want to plug something, but I'm not sure that's appropriate. Just like there's this dripping sound in my floor and it's bugging me. But, I don't know if it's actually a leak. So we'll see.
Fair.
Should probably reference your DTC manual. And
Hey, I don't live in a car.
He lives in a van down by the river.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. As for me, at Bromium404 on YouTube, or Bromium wherever you get your social media. But that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. Next week, as we've already kind of mentioned, we're going to talk about job searching and interviewing, and I guess a little bit of resume kind of suggestions, but also kind of just going through like the job searching craziness and process that is during the pandemic as well. So we'll talk at you next week. Until then, though, we've been Audible Anomaly. Bye.